Hello and welcome to the Financial Wellness Hour. I am your host, Hirsch Sermon, and I'm really happy to have you here with me today on WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. This show is for those wanting to learn more about creating financial wellness, and we will be taking different life cycles, exploring them financially and emotionally, because personal finances are usually not about the money, believe that or not. Rather, they are actually about the emotions associated with your finances. Our goal is to look at how to prepare for these life cycles and how to thrive on the other side. Although we may have a theme for the show, I can assure you that the strategies we talk about are going to be applicable to many situations you're going to be facing or maybe are actually facing right now. Although we may be pretty general in our discussions, we'd love to hear from you to make it more personal and more relevant. So you can post on the websites, you can reach us and you can call in, or you can reach me through my website, lifecycle.financial. That's lifecycle.financial. Going solo can mean different things for different people. It can mean a divorce, death of a loved one, perpetual or bachelorhood, or I'm sure there's a myriad of other ways that you can look at it as well. And we do plan on covering all of these and more. We're just not going to do it in today's show. So please do continue to tune into future shows. And again, please share the topics and thoughts that you have for future shows that you'd like to learn more about. Today, we are speaking with Jackie Pilossoph. She is a media personality. She is an author. And I'm going to use this word not lightly. She is a pioneer in building the community for those contemplating divorce, experiencing a divorce, or well beyond divorce sometimes as well. So Jackie, thank you for joining us. I'm so thrilled to have you here with us.
Thanks so much for having me, Hirsch.
So before we get into the show, I'm going to digress just a little bit. I'm going to throw out a teaser. You and I have been speaking, and one of the things we said is that with COVID, we lose track of time. We're not even sure what day it is sometimes. But the one thing we do know, the holidays are coming up, and Jackie and I were brainstorming, and she came up with a wonderful idea to help people get through the holidays, because they can be difficult. Whether it's new or not so new, it still can be very difficult. So we're going to be having a very special free webinar next week, Thursday, November 19th. It's going to be 7 p.m. Central or 8 p.m. Eastern time. So stay tuned. We're going to talk a little bit more about that at the end of the show, or towards the end. And hopefully you will tune in and join us, because there's some great stuff we're going to cover. So now that I've digressed and thrown out the teaser, I'm going to jump in. And I would say nobody creates a brand in general, especially around divorce, in a way that you have without having a story behind it and a huge passion to help others in facing similar challenges. So before we get in the brand and the community and the resources that you've created, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your personal story, if you would.
Sure. Hey, good plug on the webinar.
Thank you.
In other words, if you like us today, come to our webinar.
There you go.
Okay, so basically, I didn't get married till I was 35, which is, not young, not old, but not young. I had lived on my own. I was a very independent person. I really wanted kids. And so I met someone. It was this fairy tale romance. I had the most beautiful wedding on Michigan Avenue. It was great. And what I can't really say, I was older. We were both a little older. We had kids right away. We started fighting. There were some deep-seated issues and problems. We tried therapy. We tried everything. And I found myself at 41 with 2 small kids going through a divorce. And my background is that I worked for a TV station. So I have a master's degree in journalism. I've always loved to write. I worked in television. I also wrote feature stories for the Pioneer Press and the Chicago Tribune. And so take a person going through a divorce who loves to write, and you've got a serious problem because, we're like water faucets. And so that's kind of my story. When I was going through a divorce, I found immense comfort and validation in writing down my feelings.
So that's one way of going through therapy, is obviously expressing, letting it out. But it's created a momentum, obviously, as we'll discover as we speak through kind of our show and what we're talking about. But one of the things I think, just touching on what you said, divorce is such a vulnerable time, especially, please God, if you're going to go through a divorce, it's only once. It can be scary. It's unknown. Most people get through their divorce. They want to put as much of it as they can behind them. However, you almost seem to do the opposite with this, right? You created kind of a one-of-a-kind community, which is a safe place for thousands of people. And I mean thousands. Like, sometimes people throw out numbers, but you literally have probably 20,000 people that follow you on your social media. So thousands of people to thrive through such a difficult time and beyond it. How did I found therapy in writing and expressing myself. How did it kind of go and transform from that to what's now evolved into the Divorced Girl Smiling brand?
So, good question. So basically, I'm going through this divorce and I'm experiencing all these things that are pissing me off, right? I mean, anybody who's going through a divorce will tell you, you have these daily dodgeballs that you have to kind of try to, steer away from. And as a writer, I began writing them down. And so it was so cathartic and made me feel so much better. I always recommend people to journal their own pain. It's very helpful.
Yeah.
So then at the time, I had a published novel. I had written a couple of novels. And somebody said, hey, if you want to sell more books, start a blog. So I thought, okay, well, how perfect is this? I'll kill two birds with one stone. I'll get to tell everyone how I feel, and I will maybe sell more books. So
right.
The blog took on a life of its own, and it really has nothing to do with the books, even though the books do sell pretty well still. But I started this blog, and right away, women responded to it. And then I started to think, when I was going through a divorce, I felt like I was on an island. I didn't know anyone. I had no one to talk to. I had no one to connect with. My married friends were all wonderful, and I love them dearly even to this day, but they didn't really understand how I felt. And so I started this blog, and it just blew up because I wanted people to have a place to connect. And then I decided, why not give them some resources? So I partnered with other people, Hirsch, financial problems come into play. Everyone needs a divorce attorney. And so why not vet these people really well and then help people connect with them also? So that's how it all started.
And I just want to touch on a few things that I think are so huge for people going through the process, or even just digesting it after everything's finalized. You mentioned about married friends. And when you're getting divorced, sometimes it can be a very lonely, journey, and you do need that support. And you love your friends, but they just don't get it if they haven't been through it, which I think is something, obviously, you just kind of touched on. That journaling, I did it when I was going through my divorce. But I think part of that was you can identify what's going on. And sometimes if you're in the safe and the right space, being able to share that and being able to kind of own what's going on and work through it, the word you used, cathartic, I think was very, very expressive and accurate. It's huge to be able to do that. And, as I said, your website, your Facebook group, they reach thousands of people, and there's such an array of posts and support and education. These are also, people in all different stages of divorce. Some of them are contemplating, some of them are in the middle and the thick of it. Some of them have finalized, but they're kind of still reeling from the experience. And that can be 6 weeks after, and that can be 6 years after sometimes, quite honestly. So can you share a little bit on some of the reasons that people have joined your Facebook group or, engage in your website? Can you just share a little bit around that, maybe?
So why I think it has been so successful and so popular really is that people who are going through a divorce or thinking about it, or like you said, after divorce, they just want to feel validated. They want to feel heard. So that's the first thing. So even if they post on there, and even if I try to answer every single email or anything that I get, but even if I didn't answer, let's just say, at least they got it out there. They feel validated. They feel heard. They feel like someone gets them, so it doesn't feel so unfair. And the second reason is they want to connect with other divorced people who are going through the same thing that they are. So they don't want to feel alone. They don't want to feel isolated, like nobody understands them. So they want to talk to other people. And the other thing is, I'm not a therapist, and I think therapy is wonderful. And I think anyone going through a divorce should consider, I think it should be required actually to go to therapy when you're going through a divorce. But my people like me because I actually lived this. I went through every scenario, starting with, financial issues, having to go back to work. My ex gets engaged, not very soon, but a couple years later, I freaked out, even though I didn't want to get back with him, but it was very upsetting to me. Also he started dating right at the beginning of the divorce. He, just anything. The kids were acting out. I was afraid to be a single mom and be the head of my household. I had to take over the mortgage of our home. So there's so many things that are scary, and I personally experienced them. So I feel like I have the authority to say, here's what I did wrong. Here's where I really screwed up. Don't do this. Or here's what I did that worked. Or here's what I wish I would have done that you can do too.
And, that struggle is real phrase, or, is so true when it comes to divorce, obviously. And excuse me, firstly, I just want to throw out a thank you. We just got a comment from Michelle Rubin, who I'm going to read it. Couldn't agree more. You have changed my journey, Jackie. If that's not a instant creds, street creds, right? I'm not sure what brings that on.
I'm going to start crying. That's so nice. I'm very happy.
Michelle, thank you for sharing that. And Jackie, I think you've touched a lot of people in similar ways, not just her, but it's always nice to see that. But talking about that struggle and being heard, and sometimes, unfortunately, it becomes an oppressive situation, or it might have been the whole relationship where there was abuse or something. And, I'm going back probably about 13, 14 months now. I was having lunch at a networking thing, and I actually sat next to a criminal attorney, and I said to him, we deal with the exact opposite people. And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, you're a criminal attorney and you're defending really bad people behaving as best as they can. And I'm dealing with really good people who sometimes are not behaving as best as they can, quite the opposite. Unfortunately, it can be a bruise to your ego. It can be you doubting yourself. It can be whatever. And all of what you said about being heard, that sense of being a part of something, not alone, it's so powerful when all of these things come through. And they reaching out, and I mean, if anybody is on your site who's listening, or even the Facebook group, they can see the enormous amount of posts that are coming through. And people are asking for advice all the time, and it's great that they're reaching out. But everyone's situation is different. I think it's important that people also understand this as they go through it. And so the advice that's shared, while maybe very good advice, may not always be the best for the person asking for their situation, or apply specifically to the person asking. So do you have any thoughts on asking for advice over the internet? And then if you are, how do you kind of discern what information works for me, what doesn't? How do I incorporate that into my situation?
Well, what's so beautiful about the Facebook group page is that somebody will post something and then I'll see all these opinions on there. So it's really nice that if you post something, let's say you say, anything, my ex is already dating someone. It's only been 2 weeks. I can't believe it. Okay, then you're going to get all these different opinions. So that's really nice. Just read them all, digest them all, and And then one could resonate with you and say, you know what? Yes, this person who's giving me this advice is right. And then those two people might start up a personal friendship. They might message each other and say, would you like to talk more? It sounds like we're kind of on the same wavelength. So, different, like I'll give you an example. So my ex just started dating someone. It's only been 2 weeks. So one person, might say like, what a jerk. I can't believe it. And then somebody else might say, well, you're the one who wanted the divorce. So while I understand that you might feel upset, don't worry about it. You wanted this. So please try not to worry about it. Another person might chime in and say, okay, you need to go to your lawyer right now and say that he can't introduce her to your kids, and so people shouldn't be giving legal advice, but it's something to think about. Maybe the person will run it by their lawyer, So it's really nice to have a lot of different opinions, and there's really no right. Well, I shouldn't say there's no right or wrong advice, but I try to give the advice when I comment based on just what happened to me. Like I said, what I did wrong, what I did right. And I always tell people I'm not a therapist. I'm not licensed to do this. I'm writing and giving advice from the heart because my goal is to help as many people as possible. And it really gives my life a lot of meaning to be able to do that.
And I think that's huge. I love that. And the diversity of opinions is so right. I also like the fact that I know that there are people who've struck up personal friendships and kind of mini support groups through comments and through your site as well. So it even goes beyond just the platform. And I'll tell clients as well, I probably have said it on the show as well, but the person next door to you who went through a divorce, they're probably living in a similar home. They're probably driving a similar car. They've probably got a similar amount of kids and has completely different needs and priorities to what you have.
Mm-hmm.
Just knowing that alone, I think if you read those comments with that kind of a thought in mind, like I just need to know how it pertains to me, I think becomes powerful. But I also, what I like about it is there are probably 5 perspectives that come across that you on your own may never have thought of. And now you can capitalize on that and take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's another thing that becomes very, very powerful as well.
And a reason why no one should judge anyone for anything.
Correct.
I mean, I'll give you a great example. So Vester Capital is one of my partners, and they're a financial planning firm. And Elaine Moss said to me, it's funny, I have 2 clients who have ended up with the same exact settlement, exact to the dime.
Wow.
One client said to me, oh my gosh, I'm so happy. I can't even believe it. I'm the luckiest person. The other client said, how the heck am I supposed to live on this? So, it's like just different people. And I want to say to the person, like, just be thankful, but you can't judge because you don't know.
You're 100% right. I got to share a similar story. I had a client, and this is recent. 7 or 8 weeks ago, probably said to me, I think I'm going to come out of this with about 800,000. That should be good, right? And my response was, are you going to spend 200,000 a year, or are you going to spend 50,000 a year? Living a prudent, kind of deliberate life can have a whole different situation of that same outcome. And that's where I think learning from others can be so powerful as well in this. And Jackie, in a little bit, we're going to go to a break. Before we do, I'm going to ask if you can share quickly, how do people get in touch with you? What's a quick, easy way for them to reach you or get engaged?
Thanks, Hirsch. You can reach me by going to DivorcedGirlSmiling.com. The Facebook page is called the Divorced Girl Smiling Group page. You can email me at Jackie@DivorcedGirlSmiling.com. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever is your preference.
So really not hard to find Jackie. She's everywhere. But that's a good thing because of all that she's bringing with that as well. And we are going to take a real quick break and pay some bills. We'll be back in about a minute or 2. Stay tuned. Hello, we are back with the Going Solo Network, WGSN-DB, and we are on the Financial Wellness Hour. I am your host, Hirsch Sermon, and our guest today is Jackie Pilossoph, who is a media personality and author, and has created an enormous community and a safe spot through DivorcedGirlSmiling for those who are experiencing divorce. And unfortunately, in our country, just in the US, there's about 1.2 million divorces every year. So there are many people needing these kind of resources. Jackie shared a little bit about her journey and how that inspired what has come out of her journey to help literally thousands of people in the challenges that they have faced. So we're talking a little bit about the community and the website and the Facebook page, and you are very engaged in that. You read, as you said, almost every post, or many of them. I cannot say every single one because you would be up about 26 hours a day. But there's a lot of people that reach out to you, ask you to post anonymously. There's a lot of things like that that are going on, and you are very engaged in the activity, as well as sharing your insights from your experience and what you've learned over all these years of what you've created. Do you have any kind of favorite stories or outcomes that you want to share that you've seen progress through the?
Yes. And Hirsch, one thing I wanted to tell you is I love how you said the word safe, because I'm very discreet. I tell people stories, but I never use names. I change details because I don't want anyone to feel unsafe, like they can't say anything to me and they're going to end up, with their name and address and their whole story, and everyone around them that they know is going to know. So I'm trying to give people advice really anonymously.
Yeah.
Okay. So you asked me about stories. So I have several of the same scenario that I would like to share that I think is very important. I'll get emails from people, and I know that they're up at 2:00 in the morning, looking online. They see me, they start reading my site, they see my email address, and then they email me their story. And it's so sad, and I feel terrible. And they're like, I'm going through this horrible divorce and I can't sleep and I'm so upset and I never thought this would happen to me and I'm worried about my kids and finances. And they tell me their whole story. And then I give them advice. And then I get another email from them, because I always say, please stay in touch, update me. Most people don't, but a lot of people do. And I get an email 6 months later. I can't thank you enough. I am dating this wonderful guy. I think I might be in love. Or even maybe a year later. 6 months is a little. But my point is that I see these people evolve and grow and learn to accept the past and be at peace with it and do the work to get themselves to a good place, a healthy place where they never thought they could do it. And then they did. And so there's all this self-love and empowerment and feeling so good. And it's so beautiful to see. So, that is what I hope I can help people start doing.
Right. No, I think it's got to be enormously rewarding. I mean, I've seen it in my practice, but you see it exponentially with these people because of all that they share. And I tend to deal with the finance side, right? But you sharing with the finance side and everything else as well comes through. But what I like as well in that is, I'm sure when they're reaching out to you, it's not because they're happy and in a great place. They're in a horrible place. They're in a miserable place with pain. And being able to even just be able to have the ability to move through that is one thing, but to have the gratitude and reach out, I think, is a whole nother level of seeing these people grow and evolve, which is wonderful. It's very, very rewarding to be able to.
It's not easy to do. And I always tell people you have to be patient, and it's like you have to put your nose in the grind and make the right decisions, not always the easiest decisions. If you're dating a guy who in your heart isn't right for you, you got to make that break at some point. And whether that takes, that happened to me, and I spent years with in a wrong relationship, and it took a long time for me to have the guts to get out of it. So I never claimed to be perfect. I'm still making mistakes.
We all progress.
But if I look at myself from day one of the divorce, a 41-year-old, feeling frumpy, unattractive, not working, bad self-esteem, wasn't sure I was capable of anything until now. I'm not telling people it's going to take you 14 years, but there's a huge transition. And as human beings, we're constantly changing, hopefully for the better, every day of our lives till the day we die.
Right. No, and I would say, if you had to say, I'm going to describe somebody, and you described your 41-year-old and you just described who you are now, I don't think most people who know you today would put those two people together to say this was the same person.
Different person. And people who are going through a divorce have to also cut themselves a break and say, you know what, I'm not in my normal self. And if I make mistakes, and I have a whole blog that's called, don't do anything stupid, and all the stupid things I did when I was first separated, because you're just not yourself.
Right. So, yeah, it's funny because, I'm an MBA CPA, everyone, you're the cold, heartless CPA. But one of the first things I will tell people when I work with them is you need to be gentle with yourself, and self-care, which is huge. When we discussing I think I shared this with you, Jack, when we discussing a settlement, I'll say to them, close your eyes, run through the settlement. Is there anything that physically gnaws at you or ties a knot in your stomach when you go through that settlement? And we need to know that, obviously we need to take care of ourselves and understand who we are, but at the same time, we are emotional beings. And I've said this a lot of times, emotions can be the most expensive part of your divorce if you're not careful. So they play into your finances significantly. So, and I'm going to ask, you've experienced divorce yourself, as you shared. Now you've grown this very engaged community around divorce and on moving forward. So I guess it's not really one question. It's going to be one question in three parts, if you want to look at it that way. But what advice do you have for people? Because they're very different stages when you're contemplating, when you're in the thick of it, and then afterwards and moving forward and on the other side, so to speak. What advice would you have for people in each of those groups?
All right. So you want me to start with thinking of getting divorced?
Let's start there. Let's go kind of as the journey would go.
Okay, I would say, here's what I'll offer. Thinking of getting divorced, the beginning stages when you're separated, and after it's final. Okay. Even though we know there are many stages in between those.
Yeah.
Okay. So thinking of getting divorced, I remember personally, telling my friends and sharing, I'm unhappy, we're unhappy, I don't know what to do, I'm trying desperately to make this work, and all this. So I remember at the time my therapist, who was a wonderful woman, and she said, listen, no one should judge you if you get back together with your ex, your person, you're not sure if you should get divorced, and you guys decide to get divorced, and then you get back together and you try again. If you do that 10 times, there's no judgment. Everybody's different. Some people, they know it's not right. They make a clean break. That's it. Other people try again 3, 5, 10 times. I know a girl who it took her like 4 years of on and off. That's okay. Because then when you finally decide to pull the plug, you will know when it's right. And you just have to trust your gut. So it's okay to try to give it another shot. If you need to do that. I'm sorry, I'm dealing with a dog issue here. I'm not being strange. Okay, my next piece of advice is for those who are in the thick of it, because I believe that once two people decide to get divorced, the gloves come off. And you are in this down out brawl, and your loving husband or wife suddenly... Yeah.
Not
because they're a bad person, because they're scared, they're defensive, they know they're in a legal battle, maybe a custody battle, and it's really scary. You have to be on your best behavior, because if, God forbid, you're not even a drinker and you get a DUI and you're in the middle of your divorce in a bad custody battle, you're really screwed.
You're right.
And so it's really a scary time. So just be very careful during that time in the choices that you make, because, there's a lot at stake. And I'll just be upfront and honest. I got pulled over after having 2 glasses of wine at the beginning of my divorce. And I said, dear God, if I get over this, because I don't know if I would have passed a test.
Yeah.
A sobriety test. I mean, I didn't feel like I was drunk or anything, but I hadn't eaten. I was really skinny. I went right through me, and I actually had to drive home much quicker than I thought because my babysitter at the time called and said, your Anna just threw up. She was only like 4 at the time. So I was like, shoot, I got to go. I got pulled over. I thought, if God lets me off this, I will, I will never, ever. And even since that day, I have never had a drink and driven because I feel like God did me a favor.
Right.
And my ex at the time, we're friends now, but things were so contentious. He would have said, you know what? She's a big drinker. She does this all the time. And I might have lost custody. I mean, who knows? It's a crazy time.
Yeah.
So be careful. You really have to play by the rules. Okay, on to the advice for I just got divorced. I can exhale. The deal's done. It's all in writing. Biggest mistake I made. I left the courtroom divorced with a list of things that I didn't realize I had to follow up on. So you leave, you're so happy, you think it's over. And then I didn't do all this stuff that hurt me later. Like we were expected to exchange tax returns every year.
Yeah.
We did it once. So I would say that was a reflection on my lawyer, because I think that lawyers have an obligation to follow up with you, but you have an obligation to yourself to read through it, even though you're all excited and you really think you're done. You're never really done with the legal part. So that's just some of the advice.
Right. So I will tell you one of the things that I do, because what you just touched on is so vital, is I actually take the MSA, that dissolution agreement, and I create a checklist for my clients in what they have to follow up on. And, I'll give you one example of what people often forget about. And I'm talking years beyond. They don't update their estate plan, and they might have a power of attorney on the medical or the financial. And, I'll say to them, do you really want the person making decisions who you've just gone through hell with, going through a divorce, making the decision whether they should pull the plug or not? So not what most people want. And so it's vital that you continue and follow up on the things that Jackie's talking about. I think it's huge. I'd also say, going from each one of those stages, stage to stage, is important for people to work through the stage that they're in, always looking forward, always moving forward. And I know you help, Jackie, that you help people move through these processes stage by stage. You've given the advice, the groups that are forming. Quick plug, if anyone wants, there are groups that Jackie is forming constantly that will help people. So again, reach out if it's something that you think will be beneficial. So, but that stage you're in is very different. When you're in the middle of it, as you said, and you're going through it, and you think, oh my God, I'm done. You're not quite done yet. It's actually the first chapter in the rest of your book, not the last chapter in your last book. So,
but make no mistake, it's a huge milestone. So, you can exhale and feel like you have a huge weight lifted off you in a way. But now you're entering this, I need to be responsible. I need to follow up on these things to make sure that everything that was supposed to be done gets done.
Definitely. I agree 100% on all
and
that.
That's why you need Hirsch.
So, I hope everyone heard that. No. So talk a little bit, if you would, what are some of the pitfalls or obstacles that people kind of get stuck in when they're going through these phases?
Well, I see a lot of emails from people and messages that somebody just said, I feel stuck. They just posted it the other day. And I go, what does that mean? Like, I don't know what that means. And then I thought about it. And she just said, it just feels like I'm going through the motions. and like nothing's ever going to change. And I think everyone has those times in their life, even if you're not divorced. So what my advice would be, it's up to you to make the change. Like, we have a gift of life every day that we can look in the mirror and say, what do I want to change that really isn't working, that could make me a happier person? I mean, really down to the basics, of I want to lose 5 pounds, to I want a new job, to I'm not in the right relationship, to I don't want to be in a relationship. But it really takes guts to get out of the comfort zone and admit to yourself that you could be happier. And you don't have to do it today.
Right.
Or it could be something really small that you could change. Or, like I always heard, when you're trying to improve your health or your physical appearance or both, you don't have to say, okay, I'm going to have 1,000 calories a day. I'm going to work out 3 times a day. I'm joining a gym. I'm not going to eat any carbs. I'm giving up sugar. You don't have to do that. Small changes will get you to your goal. How about just like, I'm going to cut down, and instead of having a glass of wine every night or 2 glasses or whatever, I'm going to have 1 glass 3 times a week. You'll notice the difference after a few weeks.
Right.
So
small steps, big results.
Right.
Yeah. And Jackie, I'm going to have you back on, because I have so much more that I have and want to discuss with you. But I did say we were going to talk a little bit about the webinar we're putting on next week. Obviously, the facing the holidays alone can be a big, daunting event for some people. So we'd love you to join us. It's going to be a live event. We're going to have Q&A. You can ask your questions of us. We've got some topics we're going to cover about building your plan and how do you get through this in a healthy manner, which I think is so, so important. And one of the things also is talking about the financial aspect of going through the holidays alone, which can be detrimental, especially in an emotional state. So please do join us. You can reach out through my website, lifecycle.financial. And I am going to ask Jackie so before I ask you to share your information, I do want to throw out, you have people all across the country. So if there are professionals that you want to get engaged with this and you want to reach out to Jackie, please do. Anyone listening who knows that they can take advantage of her skill set and learn from her, please do. And Jackie, how do they get a hold of you as well?
Okay, so good point. If you're a professional listening to this, I really would like to meet more divorce attorneys, financial planners, therapists, anyone who wants to reach divorced people in other cities. So I know all the Chicago people who are my partners, and I feel wonderful recommending them. I use them myself. But if you're anywhere other place in the country, there's so many people looking for good resources, and I would love to connect with you. As far as my readers, listeners, go to Jackie@DivorcedGirlSmiling.com to email me. Go to Divorce Girl Smiling on Facebook or the Divorce Girl Smiling Facebook group page, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. Just look up Divorce Girl Smiling, and the website is DivorcedGirlSmiling.com.
Jackie, thank you. I also want to thank you. You got pretty raw and vulnerable in some of the stuff that you shared today. So thank you for that as well. Not an easy thing to be able to do, so I appreciate that tremendously. I'm Hirsch Sermon, your host for the Financial Wellness Hour. Please reach out to me through my website, lifecycle.financial. That's lifecycle.financial. And please do reach out, whether it's questions for me or whether it's for Jackie Pilossoph, Divorce Girl Smiling, our guest today. And I look forward to you joining me next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll speak to you soon.
Thanks for having me, Hirsch.
Thank you.